Let's bring back in our panel, Leslie Sanchez, Molly Hooper, and Antjuan Seawright. So let's talk about one of the most tense exchanges of the night, really an extended exchange that drew in actually all of the candidates when the discussion turned to campaign finance. So here's one exchange between Senator Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
We made the decision many years ago that rich people in smoke-filled rooms would not pick the next president of the United States. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, your response. You know, according to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. So if this is important. This is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass.
All right, so the gloves have clearly come off, Leslie Sanchez. As the Republican at the table here, what did you make of that exchange? This isn't necessarily something we've heard to this degree in a Democratic primary.
No, I mean, you have the younger candidate, you know, the sophomoric approach of saying, you don't want to have a purity test. You want to open all donors up, you know, dialing for dollars. He's in the middle of that process. And people that have been in these campaigns and these fights for a long time on the Democratic Party, and I'll let, you know, my Democratic colleagues talk about that. There's always this struggle where they paint the Republicans as the ones who are dialing for those big dollars. You know, they're having those private fundraisers with the billionaires, and they're really buying these elections. And the Democrats tout their impact with small donors and kind of the transparency of that. And they weren't the people in the room with the billionaires, not to this extent. And they drew that line. You certainly saw it with Sanders. You certainly saw it as a big push even before Trump. So to call that out and now lose that as an area that they can stand on as a party collectively, that's a really significant thing. And it's interesting, it's coming from one of the newer kind of the vibrant candidate, the different candidate that's on that stage versus the people who've been in that fight for a long time.
Yeah. What was your thought on that, Antjuan? Because, you know, this is not necessarily the dynamic that I think Democrats are used to hearing, right? Where you have discussion of wine caves and who...
Why can't I have the billionaire friends too?
Right, and who's got the billionaire friends and who doesn't, and why or why not that might be appropriate for a Democratic contest.
Invite me to a wine cave, please.
I don't know.
First of all, I think Democrats have to remember this through all things. We're running for our party's nomination, not against each other. And at the end of this process, we all will be on the same team with one common goal. How we get there, we may travel different ways, we may take different methods to get there, but we're all trying to get to the same place in the end. That's number one. Number two, I believe in the big tent concept. I believe in the diversity concept that we preach and teach about. So I'm not going to be hypocritical that you can't have small donors and the Leslie Sanchez of the world who can give larger contributions if needed because you believe in a cause or believe in a candidate. And I think that's where I may differ from my party, and I'm okay with that. And I think that's what Mayor Pete is saying. I think that's what Vice President Biden and some others are saying. And I don't think that Warren, Sanders, or anyone else should criticize other candidates for positions they decide to take. No one asked them to say, we're not going to take certain contributions, we're not going to show up at certain events. And in my mind, that's not going to change the hearts and minds of voters that we have to win over. In fact, I would argue differently. I would argue that the money we turn away, perhaps Republicans are going to take that money and use it to defeat us. So it doesn't make sense to me. I think it's counterproductive.
It just seemed, I just thought it was very funny, just as a spectator watching this. This is like one of those popcorn moments, I think, that Caitlin was talking about, because Mayor Pete was ready for that, and he turned it around and he said, you know, you make 100 times more than me, you know, according to Forbes and the billionaires. I'm at the bottom of the bunch. And he's like, but I wouldn't hold it against you if you, making millions of dollars, happen to contribute to my campaign. I mean, if this was a Democratic purity test, I couldn't stand on the same stage as you. I mean, I thought he turned it around well. And for people who don't really understand the dynamics of how this fundraising works, it is very confusing. And I think that one thing is, they were talking a lot about the right to free speech. I mean, giving your money to a cause that you believe in. It's an expression of speech.
It's an expression of speech that the Democrats have wanted to limit when they say that they didn't want to take PAC contributions, that they were looking, with a skepticism at the types of individuals and, grading the individuals that were giving these types of dollars. And it was only Republicans that were doing that, in the back room, smoking cigars, taking these big checks at these $25,000 plate dinners, which, by the way, can we not forget, the last campaign, 2016, that was part of the Bernie Sanders argument,
right,
was the Democratic National Committee was kind of, connected money-wise with Hillary Clinton and all those donors and that donor list. So there's some really kind of hurt feelings in that. And the other part, I think we made a little bit of news with Andrew Yang and Ed O'Keefe asking about, opening up to the press his private fundraisers. He's like, sure, social media is allowed. I haven't restricted people. But it's those unguarded moments. There's a lot of reasons members of the press want to be in there. And it just reminds me of the one with Barack Obama when he was talking about Midwestern voters, remember, and he back in his campaign when he said they are bitter, they cling to their guns or religion. And
or what about Mitt Romney?
I know you're so quick.
Well, we
have them on both sides. I can think of a particular representative from Virginia who said a few different things too. I mean, there's
there
a long
are a lot
list
of interesting things that people say
come out as the reporter who's covering those.
And see, for me as a strategist, you know what I care about? Turning people out to the ballot box.
Right.
And for me,
does this animate people?
No.
When they hear people are clinging to their guns and religion as a pejorative to like.
No, what I'm saying is this discussion that
wasn't deplorables. Wasn't that at a fundraiser?
Deplorables.
This discussion that Warren and Pete having about who's giving money and what type of event. At the end of the day, I can't name a voter in South Carolina
that cares about that.
Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania that cares what kind of event you raise money with. In fact, they would probably care more if you don't have the resources to communicate with them about what you're going to do for them if you were elected. So what I care about is winning elections. And we can get caught up on the details and get cute, but getting cute arguably has gotten us to the point where we are now. And getting cute, I think, will dig us in a deeper hole as Democrats of where we need to be. And so I'm not interested in that. We have to get on the same page about winning elections, getting back to the basics. And I think that's the problem we have in our party.
All right.